Oh, it has been a long investigation. This January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol has the primary focus on if Donald Trump was the lead instigator, the guy at the top, as the committee members claim, steering the whole operation to try and overtake the government. Well, they get to meet again today, Kevin, and they will vote on whether or not they will recommend criminal charges, possibly for the former president.
Yeah, Tom, Republicans take over control of the House in January. If they were not, I'm sure the January 6th committee hearings would go another 2 years. But time's up for them, so we are near the end of this House committee hearing. For 18 long months, they have been investigating the role former President Donald Trump played in the January 6, 2021 U.S. Capitol attack. From primetime TV to the Sunday talk shows, they have gone after Donald Trump. So today's hearing will include votes on criminal recommendations, possibly for the former president himself. Possibly. Are you kidding me? They absolutely will recommend charges against the former president of the United States. There was a chance, Tom, for this committee to do good for the country, to find the actual facts of how this was able to take place and how it could be prevented in the future. But instead, we really got a lot of political theater. Joining us now is Roshini, who is an attorney, political strategist, and host of the podcast, The Crisis Files. Good morning, Roshini. How are you?
Good morning, guys. Yes, I remember that first hearing when I talked with you before and after the big television production. It is interesting that this is where we've landed.
Oh, yeah, we've come a long way and have gone nowhere. The conspiracy. Let's look at the legal first. What are they looking at? Possibly a conspiracy to interrupt a hearing? Are they looking at sedition? What are they looking at legally?
Well, they're looking at a lot of different things, but let's just start with the basic vote that's going to happen today. What they're voting on is, should we vote for a criminal referral to the Justice Department? And right there is where I find the bad link. It's not a missing link, but the bad link, because it's just that. It's a criminal referral. And this situation really puts the current Department of Justice and any future Justice Departments in jeopardy. I mean, it's kind of a crisis, Kevin and Tom. You don't want to politicize the Department of Justice. And anything coming out of this January 6th committee hearing really does that, especially if they're going to end up voting, as you have predicted they will, for this criminal charge. I mean, it's a referral. It doesn't really have any kind of weight in the law. But what it does is it just sort of slams the Justice Department. I mean, the Justice Department, for many, many years, has been thought of, or should be, as independent of a body as possible, regardless of which party is in the presidential office. The Justice Department really needs to uphold all the laws for all citizens. And when it does bring charges, we have to all believe they're true. So I really find the issue with this very process and what's going to happen today with this vote, it just politicizes the whole thing and, to the Justice Department, and isn't really going to amount to a lot when it comes to the rest of us having any kind of belief in what the law and what the Congress is doing. I know that sounds pretty harsh. About
half the country already thinks the DOJ is politicized, and maybe they're looking forward to the referral. How big of a problem is that for our country, just the fact that so many people already fear that the DOJ is politicized?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. That is a big problem. And this only further hurts it. It hurts the Department of Justice, because if the Department of Justice, has been doing some of its own investigating or wants to do that further, if it ever does come up with charges, it should just come out of the Department of Justice, any charge, if that were to happen. And then, as I've talked with both of you, Kevin and Tom, over the last several months, as we've previewed and debriefed these hearings, the kinds of things that the January 6th committee brings up, I mean, it's very dramatic. I mean, where is the evidentiary chain links? This is the problem that I've always had with this committee. And frankly, in general, I don't care what party anyone is, I have a hard time with wasting taxpayer dollars on something like this to just, here we are, land today, a week before Christmas on this kind of vote that's going to happen.
Yeah, and you get these guys like Adam Schiff, who in my mind has lost all credibility, because he said back during the Russia collusion situation, that investigation into Donald Trump, that he had overwhelming evidence that Trump, he had a smoking gun, really, that Trump colluded with Vladimir Putin. That turned out not to be the case. And now he's saying, and the committee is saying, that they have overwhelming evidence that Donald Trump personally orchestrated and oversaw this multi-part effort to overturn the government. Have you seen that overwhelming evidence from the hearings that you watched?
I just haven't. What I've seen is a lot of coincidental things that members of the committee and others want to sort of help you connect the dots and land at the smoking gun. There is no smoking gun here. It's a lot of conjecture. And look, I'm not some big fan of Donald Trump. I am disappointed he's decided to run in 2024. I'd love for him to get on SpaceX and just fly away. But that wish is not going to come true. No. My Christmas wish there is not going to come true in any way.
You might have a trading card for you, though, if you would like to buy one for $99. Listen, I can't imagine Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, he isn't salivating over, charging Donald Trump for this. But he's, like you said, he's part of an independent body. It's not supposed to be political. But do you think that they've done the legwork for him already, that he's just going to take this and say, all right, great job, I'll take it from here and I'll charge the former president?
No, I don't think he's going to do that. If he's worth his law degree, I don't think he's going to do that, because his own people would need to do the investigation. They can certainly take this report that's supposed to come out on Wednesday, and whatever vote happens today, they could certainly take that and say, okay, thanks, we'll take it under advisement. But, the judiciary is its own department, right? And the judiciary that the Attorney General is kind of part of, this judicial system. So the Attorney General owes nothing to the Congress. And that's why it's just been this theatrical display at television and movie proportions that is very disappointing for me as both a strategist and an American citizen to have watched over these last few months.
You talk about theater. Let's put Donald Trump in a courtroom with 12 jurors. What might that look like?
Oh, my God. Wow. Would you want to be on that jury, Kevin?
No, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to, and I've talked about this with both of you over the years, it is not a good idea. And no matter how terrible you might think anyone is or any past president is, we are going down a really bad rabbit hole when we charge a former president of the United States. It is just a whole other level of dramatics. And yes, they're supposed to be treated like every citizen. If they did something wrong, they should be held accountable. But it is absolutely not the right place for us to be. We've kind of already become a bit of a laughingstock in international politics when it comes to some of the antics of what and many of our politicians are doing. This would just go down as some kind of kangaroo court situation. Yeah. And that's what I'm really concerned about.
I don't know if it really is all about that. I think part of it is the criminal charges, but I think a lot of it is just public opinion. And because, for example, the media has long repeated the line that the January 6 rioters killed 5 police officers that day. Well, that wouldn't stand in a court of law because that wasn't true. And I'm genuinely sad those cops died, but most of them were from suicide, and one of them had a stroke, but they weren't murdered. And many of them died long after January 6th, but it's that opinion. You say that stuff enough times through the media or through the Adam Schiffs or the Benny Thompsons, that gets out there and have it, in your view, that public opinion aspect, have enough people been so turned off by this and believe that narrative enough that Donald Trump really has no chance in the next election?
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point. When that narrative, and if it's false, in this case, what you're describing, absolutely, it gets repeated so many times and people aren't doing their own investigations or even just being discerning and asking for the facts. The traditional reporting, journalistic media has let us down in allowing that to happen and perhaps sway public opinion to where we're way beyond factual evidence.
Yeah, well, the big climax, the big show is this afternoon. We'll, of course, bring that to you. And Roshini is the one who brings her perspective on all of this for us. We appreciate you, attorney and political strategist and host of the Crisis Files podcast. Roshini, thank you so much.
Thanks, Tom and Kevin.